Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through interesting sources, pull out the key insights. Basically, we want to give you a shortcut to being well-informed, maybe find some surprising facts, have a little fun along the way. So today, we're tackling something huge, something we're almost told we have to feel all the time, happiness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Social media feeds are just full of smiles, ads promise joy if you just buy their thing. There's this feeling that if you're not like constantly upbeat, you're doing life wrong. It's a lot of pressure, isn't it? So let's unpack this. Our mission today, to look at sources that really challenge this standard idea of happiness, offer maybe a more, realistic view. We're looking at a piece from Psychology Today by Tara Shaney. She has a really personal take and also insights from Melissa Parks over at intentionalexpat.com. Expect some potentially surprising stuff here. Practical ideas that might just change how you think about your own emotions.
Yeah, and what's fascinating right off the bat is this idea that aiming for constant happiness, well, it might not just be unrealistic. It could actually be bad for us. It makes you think, is this fleeting feeling we call happiness really the goal? Or is there something else? Maybe something deeper, more steady, that's actually better for our mental well-being.
Yeah.
That's what we're digging into, why chasing that constant high might actually be, counterproductive.
That's a great starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that pressure. You felt it, right? This like nonstop push from everywhere to just be happy. The Psychology Today article nails it. Surely you felt it too. That overwhelming pressure to be happy all the time. If you're not, there must be something wrong with you, at least according to commercial wisdom. That's
Yeah.
Everywhere you look, perfect families, smiling couples, living their best life. It makes you ask, when did happiness turn into this thing you have to buy or achieve instead of just, a feeling? And Melissa Parks says something similar really plainly. Living your best life does not mean being 100% happy all the time. The idea that we can or should be always happy is a myth. It's a strong word, myth. Makes you think, where did we get this idea? Consumer culture, selling us happiness, or maybe social media with all the highlight reels making it look like everyone else is just constantly joyful.
Well, that's exactly it. We need to connect this pressure to the bigger picture of just being human. Being human means feeling, everything, the whole range, not just the easy, happy stuff. Melissa Parks makes such a key point. By not letting ourselves feel all those feelings, we can actually cause ourselves more pain. Think about it. If you're always chasing happiness, you often end up pushing down sadness or anger or fear. The feelings we're sort of taught are bad. No, but avoiding them, fighting your own emotional reality, that stops you from really dealing with life, from learning. It's like trying to walk around only looking at the sunny spots and bumping into everything else.
Yeah, that emotional blinders idea really lands. And it leads right into this key difference Tara Cheney talks about in Psychology Today, happiness versus contentment. She's very open about her own life, living with bipolar disorder, says her natural baseline tends toward the darker side of the blues.
Mm-hmm.
She knows deep depression. And she points out something interesting, that even for people with bipolar disorder, depressive symptoms are actually much more common than the manic or high energy phases. So this experience of low moods, of struggle, it's pretty universal, really.
Right.
But here's the thing. Despite all the sorrow and loss she's known, she found this really deep appreciation for life. And what she values now isn't that shiny TV ad happiness. It's something quieter, more resilient. She calls it content. And she says, and this really struck me, that contentment is a singular achievement. In fact, I believe it's the secret of true, shall we call it, happiness. It just completely reframes what a good life might feel like. Not chasing highs, but finding peace.
And the way she defines contentment compared to happiness, it's really illuminating. She has this great analogy. She says, happiness is a fleeting burst. Contentment, on the other hand, outlasts the vagaries of circumstance. It's more like a way of seeing the world, a benevolent state of being. Happiness is hot, contentment is warm, and doesn't need as much fuel to keep it alive. That's powerful, isn't it? It's not just a feeling, it's an approach. It suggests something more stable, more internally driven, less dependent on what's happening around you.
That kind of resilience.
Exactly. And this raises a question. Are there places, societies, that maybe value this contentment more than fleeting happiness? The answer seems to be yes. Look at Finland. Top of the world happiness report for 6 years straight. The U.S. way down at 15th. But here's the key detail. They didn't ask Finns, are you happy? They asked, are you satisfied with your life?
Ah, okay. That's a big difference.
Huge. It's measuring life satisfaction, this deeper, steadier feeling. It suggests their focus is maybe more on things like social support, stability, work-life balance, stuff that builds that quiet contentment, not necessarily constant euphoria. It's a really strong real-world example of valuing that warm state over the hot bursts we often chase.
That Finland example is really compelling.
Hmm.
It makes contentment feel, I don't know, more achievable maybe. And it flows right into needing to accept all our emotions, not just the good ones.
Hmm.
Melissa Parks has this interesting take on how we treat feelings like sadness or anger. We
Yeah.
tend to judge them, right? We think feeling lonely or scared is somehow negative or unhealthy. Like we shouldn't feel that way.
Definitely.
But Parks argues more often than not we end up judging our so-called negative emotions. However, judging how we're feeling only compounds the initial feeling, which leads us to feel even worse. It's that cycle, isn't it? You feel sad, you feel bad about feeling sad, and it just spirals. That advice to just be positive can actually make us feel like our real feelings aren't okay.
Exactly. So how do you break that cycle? Melissa Parks talks about developing emotional literacy. It's not just saying, I feel good or I feel bad. It's getting specific. The first step is just naming the feeling accurately, not just, I feel awful, but maybe I feel frustrated because this isn't working, or I feel anxious about that meeting, or, I'm feeling lonely today.
Just naming it.
Just naming it. It sounds simple, but it takes practice. When you give a feeling a specific name, you connect with it differently. You understand it better. It helps you see the cause, maybe, makes the feeling less like this big, scary monster and more like a signal, gives you a little distance. And then you can remind yourself, like Park says, all feelings are okay and they aren't permanent. They come and go. Practicing this helps you manage those tough emotions instead of just trying to bury them. And Parks connects this to living a meaningful life. She says that kind of life will involve a lot of moments that aren't full of happiness, but will help you to feel more content overall, accepting the whole picture, basically.
Oh, yeah. Okay, emotional literacy, getting specific, not judging. That makes a lot of sense. So if we understand that, how do we actually cultivate that deeper contentment?
Right.
Tara Cheney brings us back to something fundamental, gratitude. She says, much has been written about the healing power of gratitude, and I think you can't be thoroughly content unless you are first thoroughly grateful. Seems foundational.
Right.
But here's the twist, the catch she mentions, and this really rings true. You can't really truly appreciate what you have until you've known what it's like not to have it. It's not about living suffering, obviously, but about recognizing how hardship can change your perspective.
Yeah.
Cheney says her own past pain, her struggles, made her acutely aware of the amazing gift of life. So what she looks for isn't crazy joy, but simply the absence of pain. For her, that is true satisfaction. That's her genuine happiness. It's such a shift, appreciating peace, stability, just being, instead of always chasing the next high.
Yeah, and if you zoom out, that idea that gratitude can be born from difficulty, it's profound. Understanding that catch can totally reframe how you look at tough times, past or present. Instead of seeing struggles only as things that blocked happiness, you might see them as, well, experiences that actually carved out a deeper capacity for contentment later on. They helped you appreciate things more.
They have your perspective.
Exactly. It encourages you to really notice and treasure what Cheney calls those quiet contentments. The simple things, a good coffee, walking outside, a day without major drama, actually getting a good night's sleep. These aren't flashy moments, but they're like the steady embers that keep that warmth of contentment going.
That reframe is powerful, giving struggles meaning. And it makes me think about the bigger picture, like society. What if we, as a culture, didn't put so much emphasis on always performing happiness? Terry Cheney talks about feeling ashamed of her depression, hiding it, as if I were violating some social law that required me to be chipper all the time. I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling, even without a diagnosis, that pressure to put on a happy face.
Absolutely.
And her thought on this is really striking. Perhaps if there were less emphasis on happiness in the world, the stigma of mental illness would lessen. It would be acceptable to be feeling down sometimes.
Imagine that. A world where it's actually okay not to be okay, where vulnerability isn't seen as weakness. It could change how we support each other, couldn't it? Well, that leads to a really important question, doesn't it? What if shifting our cultural focus from chasing intense, fleeting happiness towards valuing stable, warm contentment could make society more compassionate, more accepting, especially for people dealing with mental health challenges? It would normalize the entire range of human experience. We'd understand that low period sadness, struggles, they're just part of life, not some personal failure you have to hide.
Yeah.
And this isn't about giving up on joy or celebration, not at all. It's about having a more realistic, more robust definition of well-being, building a kind of emotional foundation that doesn't fall apart when things aren't peak level happy, but finds strength in that deeper, quieter contentment, creating space for people to just be human.
Wow. Okay, this has been a really fascinating deep dive, a lot to think about.
Yeah.
So just to kind of recap the big ideas for you listening, we talked about the myth of needing to be happy 24/7. We explored contentment as this more resilient, sustainable state. We touched on emotional literacy, really knowing your feelings, and
Yeah.
how gratitude, sometimes even born from tough times, is
Mm.
key. So pulling it all together, maybe shifting focus away from chasing constant happiness and towards cultivating contentment and accepting all our feelings. Maybe that leads to a more resilient, more authentic life, a more meaningful one, perhaps.
Hmm.
What really stands out to you from all this? How might thinking about happiness differently change your day-to-day, or even how you interact with others?
And maybe one last thought to leave you with. If constantly chasing happiness can actually get in the way of our emotional growth, what's one small thing you could try this week? Maybe just pausing to name a feeling without judging it. Or consciously noticing one of those simple, quiet contentments that Tara Tony mentioned. What might happen if you leaned into the quiet strength of contentment? Just a little bit. Something to consider.